We turn a blind eye to ungratefulness, disrespect, being taken for granted, sometimes outright betrayal. All because we believe that this person is ultimately better than what it is they're bringing to the table. Have you ever had somebody in your life who had all the potential in the world, but all they ever ended up bringing to the table was headache, heartache, and drama? Somebody whose shenanigans, someone whose problems and games you put up with solely because you knew deep down inside there was a good person in there somewhere. If so, you might appreciate this. I was at my local hardware store the other day prepping for this storm that's now coming in. And as I was getting out of my truck to go inside, there was a young man and a young woman right in the middle of the parking lot having a heated argument. And it was one of those situations where no matter how hard you try to mind your business, you can't help but overhear the gist of what's going on. Now, I'm not going to repeat what this young man said, but he called her a rather unsavory name and then told her how he was going to move out and leave her high and dry. And of course, she asks him, well, where are you going to go? And all this guy does at this point is shrug his shoulders and, he calls her another unsavory name. And then he storms off because he sees that myself and a few other people had taken notice. The young woman started to cry, and I couldn't help but feel the need to make sure she was all right. So I asked her if she needed help, and she shook her head no. Of course, I accepted that, and I started to go on about my business towards the store. And right as I went to grab the doorknob, this young lady says, "I'm real sorry that you all had to hear that." I turned around and I said, "You don't owe anybody an apology. I'm sorry you had to endure that." And that's when she started to cry a little harder. And she said, "I've been good to him. I let him stay rent-free at my house. I cook for him. I help him with his bills, all kinds of stuff." So then I had to ask her, well, why do you put up with it? Why do you let him speak to you this way? And she looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. And she said, "Because he has so much potential." And all I could say in the moment was, "Ma'am, sometimes we get so caught up in a person's potential that we lose sight of what's really standing in front of our faces." But all of a sudden I had this epiphany. It was one of those, oh man, I might be growing old gracefully type reckonings. Because I immediately thought of all the times in my life where I made the same mistake. And not just with women, I mean friends, extended family, bandmates, employees, all kinds of situations. In fact, if I'm being candid about it, I'd have to argue that this is one of my biggest repeated character flaws throughout the entirety of my lifetime. I am notorious for seeing a person's potential, and so much of it that I allow myself to become ignorant of the person, or in some cases, the monster that's standing in front of me in the moment. It's easy to see what a person could be when we want good things for them, when we love them. So we start to accept the unacceptable. We accept drama. We accept disrespect, ugliness, because we keep telling ourselves how much potential they have. We turn a blind eye to ungratefulness, disrespect, being taken for granted, sometimes outright betrayal. All because we believe that this person is ultimately better than what it is they're bringing to the table. Like it's some kind of growing pain, some temporary phase that they're going through, right? And how they're going to one day wake up and come to see themselves and hopefully us as worth more than the shit show they're bringing to the table. But in truth, and in my humble experience at least, it rarely works that way. Rarely, if ever. You can love somebody with all your heart from the core of your being. You can want the best things in the world for them. You can want to see them rise to the top of this game of life, to see them snap out of it and find their purpose, fulfillment, direction. You can see them snatching victory from the jaws of defeat. But I would argue that very few people turn their lives around merely because they're loved. I've seen people, you probably have too, who had it all. Great families, financial stability, solid partner in life, amazing children, their dream job, you name it. And I've seen them sacrifice all of it because they weren't ready to do the internal work. I wish I could say that there's some magic fix if you're experiencing what this young lady was. But there isn't. In fact, the only reason I shifted gears in my life when I was going through what she is that it happened to me so many times, so regularly, that I had to step back and assess. I had to ask myself what the problem was. Was I just terrible at picking women? Was I bad at picking friends? Did I just have garbage for luck? No. The problem was me. The problem is I let my heart override what my brain was trying to tell me. We know when we're being treated less than favorably. We know when somebody is there for us versus because of us. We know when somebody's got our best interests at the forefront of their hearts. And it's not even cognitive. We feel it. So whenever we don't, our brains send out these warning signals. And the trouble is, it's hard for our minds and our hearts to be in conflict with one another. The brain can be throwing red flag after red flag after red flag, but if the heart is solely locked in on somebody's potential and on our loyalty and love for them, we can really damage ourselves. I can speak for me, it took me first realizing there was a pattern to see it clearly and that it wasn't luck. And once I saw it for what it was, then I'd ask myself if it was acceptable. Of course it wasn't. Then I had to draw a new line in the sand, new boundaries. I had to challenge what I would and would not tolerate. And as if that wasn't hard enough, then I had to implement it. That proved to be the hardest part, by far. Implementing those boundaries, implementing those standards consistently, with consistency, always. It's easy to say no to somebody we don't care about, someone we don't know. It's not so easy when the heart is invested in somebody, and especially if that person has potential, the potential to be more than they are. After I said what I did to that young woman, I saw her face change. And don't get me wrong, she was still crying. She was still very much upset. But I could see this glimmer of light, this glimmer of hope. It was like she understood the gist of what I was saying. So I asked her one last time if she needed any help. She maintained no, and I went on about my business because I'm not one to pry or to push. And that was that. But I didn't say to her what I'm saying to you all now, and part of me wishes I had. Who knows, maybe one day she'll see this video. But I hope that she finds what I found in way less time and with way less heartache. I hope that she can find that better place more softly and more safely than I did. And either way, I hope this speaks to at least some of you. I think a lot of people have been here. And if you've been through this and in your own way, feel free to tell me about it in the comments. Have you ever loved somebody's potential? Have you ever held on too long? I know I have. Anyway, that's it for this one. We have a hell of a storm coming through. The record-breaking storm of 2026. At the time of this recording, it's late January. And I don't know, they say we're going to be talking about this one for years to come. We'll see. Anyway, as always, I appreciate you being here. And stay safe in this monster. I will see you next time.